Hello, I'm Charmaine Ward-Millner, Director of Corporate Relations with Georgia Power, and I am excited to be here with you for the National Black MBA Atlanta Chapter Professional Development Symposium, or as it's better known, PDS. During this session, we're going to talk about how to navigate virtual interviewing. So there are two things that I'd like to share in terms of our agenda. First of all, navigating, how to be your best self on video conferences, and then how to dress for the position you want. Once we understand that, we're going to move into the second part, which is telling your story. That's resume preparation, elevator pitches, and interviewing. I'd like to just take a moment and have you sit back and relax and watch this YouTube video on being your best self on video conferences. This will give you 10 tips on how to just excel at any video conference. So take a look. Hi, my name is Charmaine Ward-Millner. I'm a corporate philanthropy executive, certified coach, and super connector. In today's world, we're using video calls more than ever. We're having to transition quickly to better understand the norms of how we engage and communicate in our workplace. As we reimagine how to communicate now and in the future utilizing video calls, I have 10 simple tips that I want to share with you so that you can be your best self on the video call.
Lighting.
Lighting is everything. We want to make sure that we're in the best possible light on our video calls. And it's easy. Just pick up your phone, press the camera button, and then make sure that the phone is in selfie mode. You want to take your phone with the camera on, and of course it's in selfie mode, and walk around your space. You want to stay away from lights that are above your head or coming from the sides because they'll cast bad shadows. You also want to avoid light from behind you because they'll wash you out. Be aware of other devices or screens in front of you or on the side of you because they could be adding way too much light. Also, make sure that if you're outside that the sun is in front of you and not behind you. The best lighting is natural lighting. If you can sit facing a window, that's perfect. But if you can't, simply put a table lamp in front of you for great results.
Background.
Very important but often overlooked part of a video call is the background. Remember, avoid books, artwork, or pictures that might be distracting or even offensive. And be sure the area behind you is not messy, cluttered, or dirty. It's okay to have everyday household items in your background, but take a moment to organize them to create a video-ready background. Remember, when it comes to your room, keep it simple.
Grooming.
Although you're not going to the office every day, you still want to look presentable, and it all starts with basic grooming. You may not be taking a shower, but make sure you wash your face, style your hair, and if you wear makeup, apply some natural makeup. You want to show up on the video call the same as you would for casual Friday in the office.
Clothing.
The perfect video outfit starts from the waist up. For men, avoid older, dingy t-shirts, tank tops, or shirts with graphic or offensive language. Instead, try a plain tee or a collared shirt or even a sweater. Make sure your clothes are clean and wrinkle-free. It doesn't matter what you have on the bottom as long as you don't have to get up.
Camera angles.
When on a video call, remember, camera angles really do make a difference. Don't have a camera so low that they're looking at your chin or up your nose, and avoid the camera being too high so that they're just looking at your forehead or the top of your head. The camera should always be slightly above your eye level. A tip that I use is to put my computer on top of a box on top of my desk. I even use a plain shoebox. Also, if you're using your phone, you could put a coffee mug on top of the shoebox and hang your phone off of it using a pop socket. Remember, you should always be looking directly at the camera or at the speaker, not at yourself, no matter how great you look that day. It's also helpful to keep your camera in the speaker mode as opposed to the gallery mode. That makes it a lot easier for you to focus on just looking at the speaker and not all of the other people that are on the call. Remember, camera angles really do matter.
Body language.
It has been said that 93% of all communication is nonverbal, and that applies for video calls as well. You might not be looking at all the other participants, but they are looking at you. What is your body language saying about you? Is your chin on your hand Are your arms crossed? Are you hunched over? These actions all say you're bored, you're uninterested. What you want to do is to sit up straight, face forward, have your hands comfortably in your lap on the desk, and avoid fidgeting and scratching, playing with your hair, or even touching your face. When you're speaking, don't lean in because the camera has a wide angle and it will distort your face. Instead, move your whole body forward. And it's okay to use your hands. It's just as important how you look when you're listening as when you're speaking.
Distractions.
Distractions? Everybody has them. Some homes are more chaotic than others. Children, friends, family, pets running around when you're trying to do work on a video call. So what do? I have a couple of tips for you. 1, find a quiet place away from the distractions. That might be a room away from everyone, the front porch, or even the back deck. 2, create a simple sign that says, I'm on video calls, do not disturb. And then get the whole family involved the night before. Number 3, sit the family down and say, okay, I'm going to be on the video call from this time until this time. If there's anything you need, let me know now. Otherwise, it will have to wait until the end of the call. But distractions do happen. And when they do, just roll with it.
Etiquette.
Treat every video call as if you were in an in-person meeting. And that means, number 1, turning on your camera. Yes, I'm going to say it again. Turn on your camera. Number 2, it's okay to grab a Coke or a cup of coffee, but absolutely no eating. And chewing is never a good look. Number 3, mute your notifications. And number 4, anytime you're not speaking, you should be on mute. And then lastly, and this may seem like a great time to actually multitask, but it's not. People can tell when you're not paying attention and when you're working in another window. So note to self, be present.
Technical tips.
Here are a few technical tips to help you on video calls. When you join a call, have your video off. This will give you a few moments to center yourself and make sure you're prepared to turn the video on. Also, make sure you select Engage HD so that you can leverage the best picture technology. And finally, select Enhance My Appearance. Who doesn't want a little help?
Final tip.
And my last tip is really a word of encouragement. As you've been learning to be your best self on video calls, be kind to yourself. You're going to make mistakes. But if you keep practicing, I promise you will get better. Video calls are the new norm for how we communicate in the workplace. I've just shared with you 10 easy and actionable tips that you can use. I hope you enjoyed that video. But let's move on. Now that we know the tips for being our best self on the virtual video conferences, let's talk about why it's so important. Well, let's look at some statistics. 70% of employers say they would prefer candidates not to wear designer clothes and designer jewelry. So did you hear that? That's not important. What they want to make sure is that you come across in a very professional way. 65% of bosses said that the attire can make the difference between 2 equal candidates. I'm going to let that sink in for a moment. The attire can make the difference between 2 equal candidates. And finally, 55% of employers say that the first impressions are the way that you're dressed, the way that you act, and when you walk through the door. And in this case, when you show up on that video screen. So we now have the statistics around why this conversation is so important. So what does showing up on the video camera in terms of attire look like? Well, we want to have business attire. And we're going to break that in half for males and for females. So first of all, for females, you look at this picture and you can see the young lady, half of her is in business casual and the other half is in business. Business means either wearing a pantsuit, a skirt suit, or a business dress. You want to have small jewelry, if that's earrings or a small necklace. You also want to have on some sensible shoes if you were in person. Obviously, we're on a video conference, so they can't see that. The one thing I would recommend, although they can't see what's at the bottom, I would recommend you go ahead and put the entire suit on. You wouldn't want to have any accidents where you shifted a certain way or you got up and they maybe saw a part of your outfit that you didn't want them to see. We've all seen some of those videos, right, out there on social media. So for men, what does it look like? Again, business casual, you look at one side of him and you see how he's dressed, but on the other side, for business attire, a dark suit. That could be black, that could be charcoal gray, it could be navy, with a light colored shirt, white or cream, and then with a tie that's very professional and a nice professional, sedate color, right? So you don't want anything too flamboyant, nothing with designer labels all over it, just something very professional. You also want to make sure that your hair is well kempt, that in the case of a female, that you have on natural makeup if you choose to wear makeup, and that you have actually taken care to, take care of your skin so that you look very refreshed and you look like you're ready to begin the interview. So these are some of the things to think about when you think about attire and how you show up on the video conference. So now, we know the 10 tips for how to show up our best selves. We also know what the attire is that we should be thinking about. Now that we're on the video conference, what do we say? Well, the next step is all about telling your story. And everyone has a story to tell. It's just a matter of how you tell it. So what does that include? So first of all, your resume. That's the first thing that you have about telling your story. Now, I know this slide is a little busy, but I want to make sure that you know all the different things that you need to think about on your resume. So the first thing is having a professional email address. So if you have anything that you think is cute or is funny, keep that email address and create a new email address just for engaging with employers, just for your resume and for business situations. So you want to have a professional email address that's perhaps your name and your number, some particular number like Charmaine Ward-1, right? Or Charmaine Ward-Millner 24, because sometimes someone else may already have your email. You also want to make sure it's 100% error-free. That means no typos, no grammatical mistakes, and unfortunately, just spell checking is not enough. Many times it does not catch the errors. So you want to make sure that you do two things. One, have someone else read your resume, and two, read your resume aloud. Often that will help you to catch some of those errors. The third, white space is your friend. So you don't have to take up every single piece of the paper with your resume. Make sure you have some white space. You want to use action words. And guess what? You can go and Google, show me all the action words, and make sure your resume, every single bullet starts with interesting, engaging, dynamic action words. Avoid overused phrases. Position yourself for the role that you're going for. Focus on how your accomplishments have actually prepared you for the next step in your career or have prepared you for the job that you're interviewing for. Eliminate any passive language and make sure you're not using filler words. So go back through and make it as concise as you possibly can. And then finally, read over your resume several times, which is what we talked about. Read it out loud and make sure that it really is a great representation of who you are and it tells your story. And finally, figure out what job you want before you begin your job search, because that will certainly help you to be able to tell a better story. The next thing is that you want to understand what are some of the core competencies that employers look for when they're thinking about high-performing candidates, and make sure that you speak to some of those competencies in your resume and in your elevator pitch, which we're going to talk about. So these are just some of the 10 competencies that we have found set high-performing candidates apart from other candidates. So look at your resume and see, how do different bullets, how do different phrases align and show how you have these competencies. And now we're ready to actually begin to talk. So it's the what, the how, and the ask. The what is the content. The how is the delivery. And then the ask is, what are you asking for? Are you asking for an interview? Are you asking for the job? This all comes through the elevator pitch. And that's that 30-second, 60-second memorable conversation that you have that talks about you. And they call it the elevator pitch, quite frankly, because they used to say when people would go up and down in elevators in office buildings, this is what you would say if you happen to get on the elevator with the CEO and you had to ride down the elevator to the bottom. You would be prepared with what you wanted to say. And so it became coined as the elevator pitch. So let's talk about what that is. First of all, you want to tell what you do, not what you are. So it's not that you are an accountant, but it's that you have a passion for numbers and that you love having to go and find the issues or the errors in numbers and that you have a curiosity around getting numbers right. That's what you do. Not just, I'm an accountant. You want to be interesting. You want to be authentic. You want to make a connection with the person that you're talking to. And how do you do that? By focusing on what matters, keeping it conversational. Tell, don't sell. We're not selling yourself. We're just telling them about who you are. You want to keep it concise and clear. If you know that you're someone that rambles on or it's hard for you to really tell a really clear-cut story, then you might want to think about what are those key messages that you want to get across, and then just keep that in the story. Remember, every story has a beginning, a middle, and the end. And even for the story that you're telling, you should think about it the same way. And then you want to make sure that the elevator pitch opens the door to continue the conversation. And that continued conversation may be another video call, it may be an interview, or it may be something else. But you want to make sure that you ask to continue the conversation. Now, the elevator pitch, you want to write it, you want to commit it to memory, and you want to practice, 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 practice. I know this is the one thing we want you to be able to say and just roll it off your tongue. So the elevator pitch is important that you know it, that it is part of who you are. Because remember, it is who you are. So if anyone else can tell it better, it has to be you. So what about when you're doing the elevator pitch? Remember, it's 55% body language, 38% tone, and 7% words. Wow. Now you might be saying, are you kidding me? How am I supposed to do that on a video conference? Well, you can. You can still use your body just like I am on the video conference. You can move just slightly. You can use your hands slightly. Remember, you don't want to be waving them. You don't want to be moving too much. You don't want to be rocking back and forth, right? But you can use it for gestures or to make a point. And then your tone. You can go up in tone. You can go down. You can speak faster. You can slow it down. All of those things will add to you being able to really deliver an effective elevator pitch. And of course, words matter. So we want to make sure you get it all right. The body language, the tone, and the words. Remember, 80% of your success will depend on your opening line. So you got to get it right the first time. And smile. I know there are some of you that say, you gotta be kidding. I'm stressed, I'm tense. It's so important that you smile on video conferences. Now, I'm not asking you to smile the entire time because there's some parts where you wanna have your face be neutral because maybe you're explaining some really important project that you did. But when you can, smile. That helps you to make a connection, and it also, believe it or not, releases some of that stress and tension that you have while you're doing the video conference. Now, what kinds of things should you be asking once you get into this conversational mode, right? You want to be inquisitive and ask questions. You want to choose your words carefully and make sure you don't interrupt the speaker. Give them a moment. Make sure that you're looking for breaks when they stop speaking. And remember to use names as much as possible. The good thing about video conferences is that most of the time, the names are right on the screen. So feel comfortable saying, Ann, once you ask them if you can call them Ann, right, or Bob. Bob, so tell me, why is this a great company, right? Or why would this be a good position? Now, those aren't questions. We're going to give you some questions to ask, but you want to make sure that when you can, that you're using their names. And show interest in the current conversation. What I mean by that is be present. Don't be so worried about what the next question is or what your next answer is. You need to be present and in the moment. And then, like we said, ask for the next steps. Now, there are some things that you should avoid. You want to avoid any conversations around religion, spirituality, politics, romance. Leave all that off the table. And we want to ask strong, powerful questions. Who, what, where, why, how. Think of questions that start with those powerful words. Remember, the ability to make small talk can be acquired. So if you're one of those people that says, this is so difficult, it is difficult for some people. For some people, it's just easy to just strike up a conversation with anyone. And often my husband tells me, you know what, do you know everybody? That's because I'm always talking to everybody. But it's just something that comes very naturally. But if it doesn't, it's okay, because it can be learned with practice. And now, as much as I want you to talk during the video conference interview, I also want you to listen. We have 2 ears so that we can listen. One of the most important skills that you can develop is power listening. And that means, again, being present, looking at the person that you're talking to, listening to what they're saying, not thinking about your answer, not thinking about what the next question might be, but what are they asking you, so that you can then answer it appropriately. There are several different interview types that I want you to be aware of. So one is the behavioral or situation interview, where they'll say, give me a situation where you did X. Or there's case interviews, where they will give you a case to read before the interview and actually be prepared to ask questions about that case. Another one is the social interview. Now, we're not having a lot of these now, but before they would actually have an interview over lunch or over breakfast or even over dinner with other people from that company and do kind of a group interview in a social setting. And then the final is a presentation interview, where they will give you a question to answer and then ask you to create a presentation and to deliver that presentation to a panelist of interviewers. So these are all different types of interview. But the important thing, regardless of the interview, is I want to make sure that you're listening. Too many times I've interviewed candidates and I've asked them a question and they've answered, and I don't know what they were answering, but it was not the question that I gave them. So I want to make sure that you are answering the question that the person is giving you. And now, one of the things I really want you to be prepared for, and that is the questions. Right? So some of the questions that you can go ahead and be prepared for that we know are often asked are the questions you see on the top of the screen. And so, why are you interested in this role? What do you know about our company? What are your biggest weaknesses? What do you consider to be your biggest professional achievement? Tell me about a challenge at work and how you dealt with it. What are you looking for in a new position? And why are you leaving your current role? These are all very common questions. And so what you should do is sit down for each of these questions and write down 2 or 3 bullets which will represent how you will answer the question. Now, I do not want you to commit this to memory, because when you answer the questions, I want it to be very natural and very authentic. And if you create 2 or 3 bullets for each one, that'll be a lot easier for you to remember just those bullets. But how you actually tell the story around those bullets will come across honest and authentic, which is what we want. Now, there are lots of other questions that you might get, and so I would also, through your own experience, write down some other questions and what your 2 or 3 bullet answers would be for those. But we know that these are some of the most common, and you absolutely should be prepared to answer them. And so now, once you've answered the questions, there's always that part in the interview where they say, what questions do you have for us? And typically, that's when we have the big silence in the room. We do not want silence. You should have 2 or 3 very thoughtful questions that you have prepared for the people that are interviewing you. So let's look at what some of those could be. So first of all, tell me, what does a typical day in the life of this role look like? What are the company's key revenue milestones for this year? How would you describe the ideal candidate for this position? Where does this role sit in the organization, and what other groups might I be working with? Can you walk me through the next steps of your hiring process? These are all great questions. Just ask 2 or 3 questions. Don't come with a list of 12 questions. You don't want to do that, but you do want to have 2 or 3 interesting and powerful questions, and these are some that you might use. Again, you want to avoid memorizing each response, and it goes back to being prepared. And the way to be prepared, practice, practice, practice. Right? One of the things that you might do, just a little tip, is to take some of those bullets that we talked about and how you're going to answer these questions, put them on stickies and put them around your computer monitor. That way, when they ask you that question, you'll see it and you'll see those two bullets, and it will jar your memory around what you want to answer. Now, of course, don't put so many stickies that you get confused. You have to do it in some type of very intentional way. But I have found that to be a really good tip for some people. Now, we've talked about how to show up your best self. We've talked about how to tell your story. But it's important how you come across, and that is self-awareness. So before you ever get on the video conference call, you want to understand, what do others see when they see you on that camera? What do others hear when they hear your voice? And here you begin to tell your story. What do others feel when you talk to them about what you want to do, about your passion, about your experiences, about your education? And the way to get this is to really do it with some of your mentors, do it with some of your friends, even with your spouse or your significant other. And ask them, how are you coming across? You can set up a sample Zoom call with your spouse or with one of your friends and actually practice with them so that they can see how you come across, so they can hear how you come across and how you make them feel. You want to make sure that you are able to make a connection and that you can see what other people see. This is one of my favorite visuals. So are you a kitten, but everybody sees you as a lion? Or are you a kitten and they see a kitten? So you want to make sure that you're self-aware. So we've talked about a lot. I hope that this has been not just educational, but informative and interesting. Now, the thing about most of these webinars, it is information you already know. But we want to do is just want to remind you of it, give you some tips on how maybe to better leverage it so that you can really excel. So what did we cover? We covered navigating, how to be your best self on video conferences. We covered how to dress for the position and how you show up on the camera. And then we went into telling your story, resume preparation, that elevator pitch, and virtual interviewing. So you are well prepared to show up well on the camera and to actually do well during that interview and get the job. I want to just show you one of my favorite videos because this is what I want you not to do.
So last month, I was in a hotel elevator with, you're never going to believe this, Mary J. Blige. I just wanted to scream. What's the 411 changed my life? I've seen you in concert 5 times. I sing your songs in the shower. I even know your birthday, January 11. Problem was, my mouth didn't work.
I know. I love that video. It's like the cat got her tongue, right? But that is not going to happen to you because you are not going to get ready. You're going to stay ready. So when you have that opportunity to give your elevator pitch, when you have the opportunity to get on that virtual call and do that interview, you're going to give it all you have and you're going to be well prepared to make yourself memorable because that's what you want to do. You want to stand out above all the other candidates so that you get the next interview, you get the next job. I have enjoyed being with you for the National Black MBA Atlanta Chapter Professional Development Symposium and sharing with you my tips, techniques, and processes for how to navigate virtual interviewing. You are now equipped with all kinds of information. I hope you got something out of it. And now I know that you can go out there and you can be your best self on virtual interviews and that you can get the interview or get the job. So with that, I just want to make sure that I say thank you. Thank you for being a member of National Black MBA, or thank you if you're not a member, come on and join National Black MBA. Thank you for being a part of PDS. Please stay connected with me All of my Instagram handles are on the screen, and I would love to stay connected with you. So often people call me the Super Connector because I have a newsletter that goes out that talks about all kinds of things that are going on in the community. I would love to share it with you. If you're interested in receiving it, just message me at any one of those social media, especially Instagram is probably the one I spend the most time on, or LinkedIn, and I will add you to our Super Connector list. With that, have a great time navigating virtual interviews. Stay connected with me. And until next time, this is Charmaine Ward-Millner.